How you doing, YouTube? Well, I don't know. Matt Massive Beer Reviews back with a beer I've been kind of eyeballing up, side-eyeing for a while now. Be Hoppin' Frog Brewing. It is their Frogichlaus. This is a barrel-aged Frogichlaus, a 12.4% Swiss-style holiday lager, lagered in bourbon barrels, Akron, Ohio. It's been a long time since I've done a Hopping Frog beer. But, you know, I'm a big Sammy Claus man. This is obviously based off of Sammy Claus. And it's barrel aged. And I've been staring at it since 2019. It landed in a local kind of just across the border in PA kind of bottle shop distributor, big distributor that does a bunch of stuff. And I've been looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And I hadn't been there for a while because of the pandemic. And I popped in and I said, screw it. I'm buying it. It might have been in 4-packs previously, but they broke them out into singles. I'll buy. So, what does it say here? It says barrel-aged Frogichlaus, creamy Swiss-style holiday lager with a malty taste and aroma. Barrel aging adds great flavors, creating more depth and a satisfying complexity. Frogichlaus is mellow and soothing, the perfect beer to settle down for a cold winter's nap. Inspired by the man so lively and quick, we knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. 12.4%. Yeah. I'm excited, to be honest with you. 12.4%. Their homage, I would say, not their clone. I doubt they're doing kind of a clone of it. And they do a barrel-aged Santa Claus. It's called Barrique. But I don't know what barrel. I don't think it's a bourbon barrel. I think it might just be a foeder or fresh oak or something like that. So I'm really curious to see how this one plays. Because if it is basically a very close facsimile, mimeograph, there you go, how about that one, of Santa Claus, but it has that added age to it, which is what you'd expect from the barreling in here. Is not necessarily a huge barrel presence, but actually taking this beer and propelling it into something that is quite a bit older, like a 10-year-old Santa Claus. I will be a fan. Label-wise, it's cool. It's pretty much what Santa Claus looks like, but Hoppin' Frog's version of that. A little bit darker labeling, a little bit more graphic design, but yeah, what does that look like? It looks like a 10-year-old Santa Claus. Not much of a head on it. There was one there at the beginning, but now it's dissipated relatively quick, as you'd expect from a beer. Santa Claus calls their beer a Doppelbock. It was once the world's strongest beer. 12.8? Is it 12.4? I forget what the Santa Claus is. Do I have an old Santa Claus floating around? But obviously it's been trumped and surpassed as far as ABV goes. But it has never been a Doppelbock for me. It's been more of kind of like a lager wine. A plum lager wine. I usually get these big plummy notes off of it. So that's what I would get off Santa Claus, especially an aged one. But this looks like a darker aged version of that, because those tend to be a little bit lighter than this version, but the head's always been not a big retainer on these kind of beers. But if I give that a swirl, I'll probably get a little bit of a head action going on. A little bit. It's a tiny bit. It's good nose. That smells awesome. It does. It really smells awesome. That really does smell very much like Santa Claus, a barrel-aged version of Santa Claus. Or should I say bourbon barrel-aged version of Santa Claus? Because you get that rich maltiness. It's kind of getting into a subtle raisinette kind of characteristic, but replace that raisinette with a plum. It's got this plummy kind of fruitiness to it. Plum fruit with these rich kind of bourbon characteristics to it. This kind of little bit of barrel char. Date figgies abound. Man, that smells really, really, really good. Like, really, really, really good. It really does remind me of like a 10 to 15-year-old Santa Claus. It really does. It just, oh man, I'm excited now. I played a little bit. We'll get the price point on this. Paid a little extra for this one, but I think I'm going to like this one a lot. But yeah, let's just get through the nose relatively quick so I can actually taste it, sucker. Yeah. Aged, plummy, caramel, date figgy, slightly raisinette kind of vibes, the soft bourbon characteristic, and by soft I mean it's omnipresent, but it's not hot. So I should say probably that more. It's non-hot kind of bourbon characteristics with a soft little barrel char, a little bit of vanilla, maybe a little bit of coconut, a little bit of chariness in there. Nothing too aggressive. It's a sweet beer, sweet on sweet on sweet. It's Santa Claus, or a version of that. Their homage to that. So I didn't expect to have a bunch of bittering component, but there is that char there. There's a little roastiness there too. So I'm excited. Let's dive in. Cheers. It's gin delicious. Good God, that goddamn delicious. That's really good. That's really, really, really good. Man, that's delicious. I'm angry at myself for not picking this up earlier. Ooh, I'm going to have to find this in bulk on the cheap, which is not possible because it's probably just expensive to begin with. And I can see why. It's worth it. It's worth every penny now. I paid $10 for the bottle. This is worth $10 for a bottle by far. Man, this is really, 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 really good. And I often feel bad referencing other breweries in breweries reviews. I don't here though, because obviously they're doing their homage to Sammy Klaus, and it's okay to mention it because it is very much has the DNA of that beer. It's not exactly the same, but it has the DNA of that beer. But taking that, adding that bourbon barrel, this having a bit of time on it already, so we're talking about 2019 version, this is 2021, you're talking about 3 years on a barrel-aged version of their take on that beer. And it really is wheelhouse here. It has this rich bourbon characteristic that has a subtle, this is a positive, not a negative, butterscotch tone to it. A lot of people think butterscotch, you think beer, you think off flavor. It's not the case here. I think it's a marrying of the way the beer is actually produced and the actual bourbon coming together with the vanilla and that coconut that is omnipresent in the actual barrel itself, and just making this rich kind of Werther's original confectionery kind of vibe to the taste of this beer. Now, on the other end of things, you have this rich kind of barley wine. It is barley wine. I'm sure it's a lager, so it's a lager wine, but for all intents and purposes, this is barley wine through and through. And a really nice mouthfeel. And I need to kind of explain that because it's not thick. It's not dense. It's not all the catchwords a lot of people really kind of lean into and want in these kind of beers. It's appropriate. It's dense, sticky, and rich. Not overly thick. Definitely not thin. Drinkable. This is one of the scariest of drinkable beers I've ever had in my life. That's kind of how Santa Claus rolls too. You get, hyper fresh Santa Claus is pretty hot stuff. An 8-year-old Santa Claus is another kind of monster. And that you drink it and you're like, I'm drinking sweet pastry, confectionery, juicy, delicious beer. And it's more beer than pastry, but this is absolutely what most people will probably classify as pastry. In this such drinkable, non-aggressive, like sneaky way that this beer copies to a T. This is delicious. This is like scary for my wallet, for my liver, for my memory, kind of delicious. Yeah, just a level of richness in this beer. From that bourbon to these chocolate vibes, to those date vibes, to those fig vibes, to that raisinetty, the plummy. It definitely gets more into raisin characteristic and the nose a little bit more plummy, which kind of makes me happy because that's really a big trait for Santa Claus. Anything that's going to kind of associate itself with that beer has to have that characteristic, and it does in the nose more so than the taste. It was there in the taste, but that date has kind of shriveled up, become a little bit more raisin. And honestly, like I could chug this and it would not hurt. That's the scary part about it. 12.4% bourbon out of the control. Big huge burly beer that shows no quarter and drinks like a dream. This really does. And I'm going to say this right now. This really does come very, 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 very close to what you get from like a 15 to 20-year-old Hardy. J.W. Lee's, J.W. Lee's is its own entity with the way it's kind of yeast comes off. Old Stock, it is very much that. This beer is what I want. A bit different because it's lagered and the bourbon's a little bit more present, but it's pretty much what you get from a 15-year-old Hardy Old Stock Lee's. That's tall company to be sticking up with. And this beer deserves to be up there. It is that delicious. That fantastic. I know where I can find hundreds of these on the shelf. I'm angry. My wallet is angry. But, man, I'm going to have to buy some of these and share with people. That's how much I like this beer. Yeah. I don't know what else to tell you. Date figgy, raisinetty, bourbony, barrel cherry, explosive, delicious fantasticalness. All in one spot. Absolutely amazing. Is this one of the better beers? No. I'm going to have to classify barrel-aged beers. There, let's do it. Barrel-aged beers that I've had is like, yes, Mount Rushmore status. No questions asked. This is delicious. If you don't think it's delicious, either I got an amazing bottle, you got a poopy bottle, or you're wrong. And the chances are it's the latter. You're just effing wrong. Valued availability on this thing, like I said, $9.99. Out the door. $9.99. All day. All day. At first I was like, $9.99. If someone said, hey, I can get you 12-ounce 1994 Thomas Hardy's for $10 a bottle, I would fall over myself ripping my wallet out of my pocket. That's what I'm getting. And leave you with, if you like what we like this beer, if you like big burly barrel-aged beers, barley wine, bourbon barrel-aged beers, and old beer. This is old beer. It's an old soul, sure. It's only 3 years old. This is not. This is like, you meet that kid that's 18, and you're like, that kid is 18, but he's acting like he's like 40. It's creepy how adult. That's this beer. This is the creepy young person that acts like a 40-year-old. It's my wife, basically. My wife acts like she's 65. This beer is my wife. My wife is beautiful. So there you go. If you like beautiful things, you'll like this beer. There you go. We're reviewing the books. I love it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Go buy it. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif if you want to go check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little Sammy Claus or Froggy Claus. God damn it, I said Sammy Claus right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.